Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Johnny Vlogs. I'm your host, John Lorden, and this episode is for today, Monday, July 24th, 2017. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. Before we jump into the topic, which might be a little bit longer than usual for an episode of Johnny Vlogs, let's go through our new awesome supporters on Patreon. Yen Nguyen is now pledged. Thank you so much. Jen Fent. Thank you very much, Jen. Justina Kowalska. I kind of like that name. Very, very cool. Kowalska. Thank you so much, Justina. Keith Shortsman also pledged. Thank you, Keith. And Catherine Richardson, who has a very interesting nickname in the middle of that I don't really think I can share on my channel. I'll just leave everyone's imagination to it. But thank you so much for the support, Catherine. I truly appreciate it. And for the little smile on my face that I get when I see your nickname. All right, everyone. This topic, it's a little bit tough to cover. I've been watching developments on it for a little over a week now. And it's a little tough because it kind of hits home, like literally. This is something that has happened in the Minneapolis area. I go to Minneapolis frequently. I have friends that live there. I go there for concerts and other events and dinner and all kinds of stuff. So it's striking me in a little bit of a sensitive place. Also, because of the recent episodes that we've done, in particular, the episode about Officer Ellis. That was Brain Scratch, I think, 2 weeks ago, a police officer who was essentially ambushed. And it's really weird because I've kind of seen this trend happen on my channel before where occasionally I'll be talking about a certain type of topic and then a new version of that story kind of kicks around. And I don't know, it's left me unsettled. I'll just be completely straight with you guys. So let's jump into this story, starting with a post from Mayor Betsy Hodges. She is the 47th mayor of Minneapolis here in Minnesota. And I want to start with some sections of this message that I think are fairly good and positive, but then we'll get into kind of the dark lining of this story. I expect body cams will be active the moment an officer begins responding to a call, whether it comes from dispatch or is initiated by the officer. Our body cameras were fully implemented only 8 months ago, and apparently she was a very big proponent for getting body cams on every single officer in Minneapolis. And from what I understand, that is the case. They are all now wearing body cams. Now, why is she talking about this? Why is she addressing this in a blog post specifically about these body cams? Well, we've had a little bit of an event happen here. From the Washington Post, the mayor of Minneapolis said Thursday, "It is unacceptable that no body camera footage exists capturing a police officer fatally shooting an Australian woman in the city over the weekend, a case that has drawn international scrutiny and criticism." And, you know, it is kind of interesting to me that we're dealing with a native of Australia. They have extremely tight gun regulation out there. And apparently she had made some comments before she was fatally shot. She had made some comments to friends of hers about the culture here in America being so much different when it comes to guns. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jim Jeffries, stand-up comedian, but he has a very well-known segment that he does, particularly about gun culture here in the U.S. However, when I look at cases like this, I always try to shy away from too much of the analysis about the gun policies. I'm really trying to look at the individual case usually and trying to determine what went wrong with that particular case. And in this case, it really feels like some big things went wrong. Hodges was sharply critical of the fact that even though every patrol officer in Minneapolis wears a body camera, neither officer present when Damon was fatally shot late Saturday activated theirs, preventing authorities from having potentially key footage of what happened. And that actually raises a question with me, which I'll get to by the end of this episode, about those cameras. I have this strange feeling that police officers, possibly police departments on a whole, might be looking at these as devices for kind of being double checked on. Kind of having someone looking over your back the whole time, double checking your work. And I think that they're failing to see that these devices can not only protect the public and sure give us an assurance that that we're going to be treated fairly when we're engaging with officers, but they can also be used to protect officers. And it's a 14-year-old girl that taught me that lesson. We'll get to that by the end of this video. Investigators said there is no footage of the shooting because neither officer activated their body cameras until after the shooting, which may have violated police department policy. The policy states that officers must manually activate the devices before any use of force, and if that does not take place, the cameras must be activated as soon as it is safe to do so. Adding to the uncertainty about what happened, investigators say Noor, he's the officer that fired the shot, has declined to be interviewed by investigators. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, BCA, the state agency investigating the shooting, said agents cannot compel an officer to speak to them. And here's a picture of him. You know what can compel them? If officers do not participate in investigations of shootings that they're involved with, this is just my feeling, they should be immediately terminated. There should be no further discussion. Them having some type of criminal defense, possibly if this goes to court, they should not be using public funds for any of that defense. These guys should literally be on their own if they're not willing to simply be interviewed by investigators looking into a case that they are directly involved with. I think that should be automatic. There shouldn't even be a discussion. Perhaps we're going to see that is the outcome. Perhaps he will be let go from the police force. But as of right now, I haven't seen anything to that effect. So what happened on this night? What happened? We're going to jump to a recent article that is actually talking about a march that happened in honor of Justine Damond. Damond, 40, called 911 on July 15th to report a suspected sexual assault outside her home. Okay, she thought she heard someone literally being assaulted in the alleyway behind her house, and she called police to come and help with this. She didn't just call once, she actually called twice because a number of minutes had passed and she was worried that they didn't have her address correct or something along those lines, so she called back to assure that they were on their way. Once two officers, identified as Matthew Harity and Mohammed Noor, arrived at the house, she approached the driver's side of the squad car just after Harity heard a loud sound near the car, according to the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Noor, who was sitting in the passenger seat, then fired his weapon through the open driver's side window. The Minnesota Department of Public Safety said Damond was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, I just want to slow this down for a minute and talk about the dynamics that we have going on here. And I have read some reports, but I can't really substantiate that. And with Noor not speaking, it's hard to say if this is true or not. But some people are saying that his gun was actually already drawn and in his lap when they were first arriving at the scene. Apparently, they arrived at the scene with their lights off. I don't know if they were trying to potentially find the attacker and not scare him off by coming in with their sirens and lights blaring. But imagine this dude's sitting in the passenger seat. You have another police officer sitting in the driver's seat, and he shoots. First of all, shooting in a car. Just imagine what that sounds like. I mean, it's a little tiny box. It's an echo chamber. I'm sure Matthew Harity probably has some hearing damage from this going on. But outside of that, imagine someone sitting on this side of you, pointing a gun out of your open window and firing a shot. It's just insane to me. It's literally insane. How did this happen? And they're shooting the person that called 911, a woman in her pajamas that came up to the window to tell them what was going on, essentially there to receive them and to hopefully point them in the right direction for the actual crime that was happening. Now, what is this loud sound that they heard near the car? I have seen no further details on that. And who knows? They're in a neighborhood. Someone might have an awesome surround sound system out there and is watching a movie or something. I have no idea what that loud sound is. And quite honestly, I think that many people out there are going to question if that loud sound actually exists or not. But that is the story that they are at least telling at this point. A large crowd gathered outside Damon's home. This is at the march that happened last Thursday, including Valerie Castile, the mother of Philando Castile, an African-American man who was shot and killed by a police officer 1 year ago. I believe the Castile family's attorney is now representing Justine's family also. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with all that. One female march participant told KSTP, "I wanted to participate in a peaceful march against what's not right. I would definitely call a friend or a neighbor before I would call the police now." And ultimately, that is really what is going on in this story. That is what has been going on, at least for me, in watching stories like this for a couple of years now, is there is a growing, I don't know if it's a mistrust or a distrust. We're not trusting the police anymore. We're not feeling like these are people that we should call in situations where something might be going wrong. And is that really best for our communities? I don't think so. I don't know how anyone could say that that would be best for our community. And let's see, I'm looking for some type of explanation. All right, so maybe the officers heard a loud bang or some loud noise outside of their car. First of all, wouldn't that prompt you to kick on your body camera at that point? If you thought that there was some type of danger going on, wouldn't you kick on that body camera? Remember that 14-year-old I told you about that taught me that lesson? I'm talking about the Delphi murders. I'm talking about two young women that were out in the middle of nowhere, saw that someone was following them, and one of them was smart enough to kick on her cell phone and to start capturing not only pictures of this guy, but a recording of his voice. How is a 14-year-old in a situation like that being smarter than someone that's supposed to be doing their job? I don't understand. I do not understand it. Just before Damon, a Sydney native was shot through a patrol car window by an officer before midnight Saturday. Officers spotted an 18 to 25-year-old white male bicycling in the area, according to investigators who interviewed one officer. I'm sure that's Harity, the one officer that's talking. But let me bring up a point. This is 11:30 on a Saturday night in Minneapolis, and you think a 25-year-old riding a bike is suspicious? What? Hello? People ride bikes in Minneapolis. It's a metropolitan area. There are bikes all over the place. People ride them. There is nothing suspicious about that whatsoever. How is this putting together a story of them being scared? I have no idea. As officers provided medical assistance to Damon, shot in the abdomen, the man stopped at the scene and watched, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension said late Tuesday. Officials did not respond Wednesday to requests for further detail. No way. Someone stopped by and watched what was going on when a police officer shot someone? These details are nonsense. They are useless. They have nothing to do with this case whatsoever. I don't even know why it's being mentioned. But here we might get some input into the mindset of the officers. Harity's attorney, Fred Bruno, told the Star Tribune Wednesday, "It's certainly reasonable for the officers to fear they could be the target of a possible ambush." And in other articles I've seen, apparently there was an ambush that happened to a New York officer recently. And look, on the channel, I've talked about this. Obviously, there is a trend of police ambushes that have been happening, but the number is really, I mean, I think if I recall correctly, it was 23 or 26 that happened in the entire year of 2016. And do you know how many officers there are? I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands at least tens of thousands. I'm not sure, it could even be hundreds of thousands. We're talking a percentage that is so low that you will be involved in one of those ambush scenarios. Now, does it happen? Of course. I covered Officer Ellis's case. Yes, it does happen. Yes, it is tragic. But if this is your job, that cannot be a regular fear that you're carrying around in you as you're going out minute to minute, day to day doing this job. The statistical probability of it is way too low. If that's a regular fear that you're reacting to when you're responding to a sex call, that's basically what this was, folks. A woman was complaining that it sounded like someone could have been being sexually assaulted, but maybe not. She wasn't even positive. She thought the woman might have said help, so she called to get this woman help. The help shows up. She goes outside to talk to the officers. Boom, she gets shot. Now, let's talk about the area. Was it reasonable for them to think that they would be ambushed here in this area, West 51st Street? A fairly nice suburb that just happens to have an alley running through it, people's trash cans, garages. I don't know. This is not a metropolitan. This isn't like a scene from RoboCop in Detroit, in a industrial area in Detroit where people are. I can't imagine that this area was particularly risky in this officer's mindset. It's not logical to me. Like I said, I have friends that live out in this area. These streets, I don't, at least, and maybe I'm naive, I'm new to the area, I do not feel like those streets are that risky, that something like that's going to happen, a police ambush shootout. Now, of course, when we talk about Officer Ellis's case, I'm sure nobody thought that an ambush was going to happen at an off-ramp in a rural area like that. So, and I'm admitting there's two very distinctive sides to this story, but the details leading up to Justine being shot, they don't fit very well. And we have one officer that's not talking. And I hope that these policies will kick in that will show us, the public, that we can trust the police policies, because there's always going to be the possibility that someone isn't going to do their job right. There's always going to be the possibility that someone out there could be a crooked cop or not be legit. And yes, maybe there's 99 good cops for every one cop that is either not doing his job right just because he's lazy or he's crooked or whatever the reason is. But if the policies and the systems that are managing these police officers don't handle that one occurrence whenever it happens, trust is going to continue to erode. It has been eroding for several years now. It is a slope that we are just moving down year after year, event after event. There's nothing that is happening to fix this distance that's happening between the public and the police and that level of trust that is supposed to be between us. It's really, really unfortunate. Just one more thought before I let you guys go. First of all, I don't think the police should also be responsible for being video producers on top of everything else that they're doing. If these police cameras cannot be activated remotely, they need to figure that out. There should be an automatic trigger when a police officer is dispatched that their camera kicks on automatically, that they don't have to do anything for it. And guess what? The camera could actually even be better than that. You could have a camera that is recording everything and just keeps it in a memory buffer. So for, maybe the last hour, it's just in this memory buffer that will eventually disappear if they don't hit a button to, save the last hour because something happened. There's something that I'm not understanding about the technology with these video cameras. It seems too simplistic. It doesn't seem as smart as our smartphones, and there's something wrong with that. But really, like I said, I don't think these police officers need to be responsible for, doing what I do here, like figuring out, is my camera working? Is my sound working okay? Let me make sure that I hit all these buttons. Oops, my mic was actually muted. They should not have that level of responsibility on top of everything else that they're doing. The technology should be helping them. And that's another important thing here. And I want to refer back to those Delphi murders. if they really thought they were in an ambush situation, the first thing they should have thought of, instead of pulling their gun out and placing it in their lap while they're driving around, is turning on their cameras, because that's what would truly help them if they are in that type of situation. Then you have everything being captured, whatever they're going through is being captured, whatever they're saying is being captured. Imagine if the worst happened and they were attacked. They would at least have a chance to potentially film the attacker, to maybe get some details out about the attacker, maybe what type of vehicle they were driving or what they looked like before they left, possibly before the officer would even, it's potentially possible that his life would end, but at least then he would have a chance to leave behind the information to get that guy and catch him and make him face justice. These cameras are not just to bust you guys. There is an upside to protecting you. What about in instances where people say that you roughed them up, that you broke their nose? Those cameras can show footage that, hey, I didn't touch that guy. Look, he's banging his head against my car. There are instances where these cameras are absolutely going to protect you guys. I hope that my statement at the beginning of this video is wildly incorrect. I hope you guys are not seeing this as Big Brother keeping an eye over your shoulder to make sure that you're doing everything right. These cameras can be used for so much more than that. They can protect you, but they absolutely can also help rebuild some of the trust with us. And if you guys don't recognize that that's a problem, then that's a whole different issue that needs to be taken up, because that's a national issue that's been going on for several years here. Well, that's it, guys. Sorry, it's one of these topics. It just really gets me wound up. I hope that better policies come in. I hope the technology gets better. But the policies should be reflective of the technology. If there's some reason why they have to hit a button to start the video recording, then the policies should demand that. There should be instant suspensions in cases where that doesn't occur for some reason, like this shooting. There might have been hey, you didn't record that? Sorry, we got to suspend you for a month. It's policy, it's automatic. There's nothing we can do about it. That's how you'll get the enforcement that the mayor is actually looking for when it comes to these cameras that have only been deployed, admittedly, for 8 months in the Minneapolis area. But without policies, the technology doesn't matter. It doesn't. There's always going to be ways around it. People are always going to be skirting it. I have a little flip top here. That's really where it is nowadays, folks. Even if you buy a webcam for something like this, they'll sell you a little flip top to close that up, because we can't even trust the manufacturers of our computer that people aren't going to be peeping on us. So now they sell us little plastic flip tops. The policies have to reflect where the technology's at, but they also have to reflect what is needed from the officer and expected of their job. And I'm going to be very curious to see if the current state of the policies in Minneapolis are going to do that task in this particular case. If anything major happens around this case, I will certainly kick on the camera and tell you guys about it. I hope this is fostering some thought within each and every one of you out there about these policies, about interacting with police officers. Quite honestly, I'm starting to feel like if I'm going to interact with a police officer, I'm going to at least have my own camera going. I don't know what else to do. If I see other people interacting with police officers, am I going to pull out my cell phone and start recording every time I see it? I don't know what else to do. If that level of trust is just so shot and gets to the point where it's so broken, that's literally what you're going to have, is people that are following around police officers, filming everything they do. I can see it. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know, guys. Tell me about it in the description box below. Or no, you can't write in there. Tell me about it in the comments below. In the description box, I will have links to everything that I've talked about here. And there's plenty more articles to chew into if you want to look into this case for yourself. But there's not a whole lot of detail. Like I said, we've got one cop that's being interviewed, the other cop isn't. So details on this case are pretty light, at least currently at this point. And they're saying that the investigation can take 3 to 4 months to be complete. So we might not get very good details for quite a while yet, but we'll see. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you right back here on the Lord and Arch channel tomorrow.